core sector data is out. So that number, I believe, is coming at 3.2 versus 5.2 month on month for July. So that is a significant drop compared to the previous month's number. In fact, coal output has come in at 5.1% versus 12% in the previous month. In fact, I'm joined by Latha Venkatesh in the studio in Mumbai. Latha, can you take us through these numbers?
Well, it does look like it's a fairly decent number. Clearly not as good as the month ago number, but 3.2% in itself cannot be considered terribly bad. That's the coal output number coming in. Now, that's a disappointment, 5.1%. It's not unusual that the coal output in July tends to be lower because mining does dip during monsoon months. So comparing it with June perhaps is a little unfair. That's the natural gas output. There anyway, the base has eroded, so that that looks big. We really should be looking for the cement and the petroleum. Okay, that's the petroleum refinery. That's an excellent number that's come in on petroleum refinery output. Fertilizer output is a big disappointment. It has been running at double digits. As you can see, the previous month was 9.8. For several months in 2015-16, we have had double-digit growth in fertilizer. Steel down 0.5%. That's again a huge disappointment. Steel has been contracting at 4% and 2% on several months of last year. Now at a 0.5% downtick indicates that things have not quite improved for the steel sector. That's electricity. That's another huge disappointment, 1.6. That was also running in high single digits for a better part. So, well, all told, this looks now more disappointing than it looked at first glance. So the core sector output coming in at 5.2%. And individual numbers, I'll just run them once again for our expert, Samiran, who is just joining us. The coal output has come in at, I guess, in single digits. That will flash for you. That's the overall core sector coming in at 3.2%. Coal was a disappointment coming in at about 1.6%. Electricity as well was a disappointment coming in at 1.6%. Steel was a contraction of about 0.5%. And refinery output was the only one which came in positive. That's the coal output, sorry, 5.1%. Okay, Samiran, first thoughts from you, 3.2% itself?
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing than probably what we would have imagined. Part of the reason is simply, as we were mentioning, that it could be to do with the monsoon. Last year, the monsoon was not that great. This year, it has been much better. So it will obviously have a bit of a distorting effect on the overall number. So particularly worrying is the cement and electricity, these two numbers, and fertilizer, these three numbers coming lower than what the last month's number has been. So that's a bit of a disappointment for sure.
Yeah, steel actually last 2 or 3 months we saw things probably troughing out. We did see, last month is 2.4%, June that is. May was 3.2%, April was 6.1%, March was 3.4%. Compared to these 4 months, a contraction of 0.5% would be taken badly?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a bit to do with the import duty effects, which are probably now going to wane out, and that could be having some impact on the production side. But more importantly, what we were discussing about the cement and electricity, that part is something which is causing more worry to me.
Yes, I agree with you. Electricity at 1.6% is kind of a historic low. We did have a bit of a shocker in May with 4.6, but otherwise electricity has been giving us high single-digit numbers at least.
In fact, what we would have expected is that with better monsoon, the hydroelectric, which was not doing that well before, that should have picked up by now. Which doesn't seem to be the case. So one could be simply that since the peak power deficit is at an all-time low now, the necessity for higher production might be that much lesser.
Which would be even more worrying that this is a demand-led reduction. Actually, petroleum refinery products, which has a decent weight of about 6% in the total index, is the only one that's done well. Fertilizer output is quite a disappointment after the double digits that we saw. Cement is the one I'm waiting for. Cement had done reasonably well in the past several months. I missed this cement number. Cement output at 1.4. That's quite a disappointment, I would assume. Last month it was 10.3.
So this is where the monsoon effect comes in, that if the monsoon is a lot more, then the cement output will be that much lesser. So that seems to be what is driving the cement part.
Fair point. Cement, perhaps, as you say, a month-on-month comparison is unfair. Aditi Nayar has joined us from ICRA. Aditi, I guess now all the numbers are running for you on your screen. Your first thoughts?
So, Latha, overall, the dip from 5.2 to 3.2 is not very surprising, given the kind of indications that we had from the CEA and also from Coal India's own numbers. We were expecting a dip. So the 1.6% growth of electricity can add a little bit of flavor to the underlying dynamics. So we've had a big slowdown as far as thermal electricity generation is concerned. And on the other hand, the hydro that you and Samiran were talking about, the interesting thing that's happened is that in July already, the contraction that we've seen for many months, that has been arrested. And now from August going forward, we would expect that with the reservoirs having been refilled, we should start to see a positive growth as far as hydroelectricity generation is concerned. With the reservoir data that we had even for last week, we've seen that the storage is now higher than what it was 1 year ago. So definitely that would boost up hydroelectricity generation going forward. Of course, on the demand side, we have to keep in mind that when the monsoon is better, the agri sector demands less electricity for pumping groundwater. So that's one factor. And, even some of the other household demand may be less. Cement is the other thing that I would just like to touch upon. Typically last few quarters, we find that every quarter there is 1 month where we get a double-digit growth, and then it seems to come crashing down after that. So the cement monthly trend is really not giving us a very good...
Okay, well, Aditi, thank you very much for joining us with your initial thoughts. Perhaps some of it can be attributed to seasonal factors like rains, but electricity clearly stands out as something that we should worry about, and definitely steel, even if we can believe that cement is a seasonal downtick. Well, back to you, Arib. That's the core sector number. The bigger number, of course, will be the GDP number, and we will come back, of course, with Samiran for more details on that.
Right, Latha. Thank you so much for joining us with all those details, and to our guests as well. So there you have it, the core sector data coming in. Just one bright spot there in terms of petroleum. Overall, the numbers lower, with most of the components getting hit by the strong monsoon that we've seen, especially the cement sector there. But